Side of the boot forward. Bouanga, Ordaz in the middle. Bouanga. Now Ordaz. Now we
What is going on? This is Celso Oliveira, and this is section 128. We're here again. What is the second episode? I'm here with Eric Holstrom, and we're here to talk LAFC for the next hour. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in last week. This week we are on my Twitter feed, but if you are there, if you're watching us on the X machine, just hop over to our YouTube feed. The YouTube feed is live, and over there you can make some comments and basically just interact more with us. But, we appreciate of anywhere that you are listening or seeing us. Thank you so much for being here. Eric, I'm going to stop talking right away because we have so much to talk about. I cannot recall doing a show with you and having to talk about 4 games. Of course, we had 2 games this past week and looking at 2 starting tomorrow with Colorado. We'll have Braden Nurse stopping by. We also have Michael, which will be talking to us a little bit about New York City FC. But first, I'm going to introduce my partner, Eric. How are you? I know you were in both games, right? I'm sorry. You're going to be going to the game tomorrow, and you were in the game this weekend. But how are you doing, and how are you feeling about having LAFC back?
Man, I love it. It's my happy place. It's really hard to peel me away from BMO Stadium if we have a game. I think pretty much, and I was talking about this. I've been in the same seats now. This is my 8th year, and there's still a couple people around me that have been there for all 8 years, and we were just kind of going over all the times we had. And, every year I've missed probably 1 to 2 games just with something going on in life. I've yet to make that perfect season, but usually make up for it with away games. So, man, that's why I fell in love with this team is because of the game day experience at LAFC, and it's second to none. And,
absolutely. We will talk about the game that you just watched the highlight of. We know the nice goal from Jerry Mbobis to give LAFC its first win of the season. But before that, we have to talk about the midweek game that we had. First game of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. LAFC went on the road on a frigid night to play Colorado, and Braden was here last week to talk to us about that game. Eric had predictions for that game. We'll talk about how he nailed that thing right in the head. And now LAFC finds itself with a little bit of a deficit coming back to LA. So Eric, I'll just open up with that. First thoughts about that game. And, it seems like you were right on the head with exactly how that game was going to go. Talk to us a bit about what you saw in general from LAFC on the cold night in Colorado.
Yeah, I saw a team that struggled, and we seem to have a history of struggling in Colorado, whether the weather's great or whether it's not. But in this case, it happened to be some of the worst conditions our boys have ever played in. So growing up in somewhere cold like that, and I talked about it last week, when you get down to like a -5 or 10 below 0 Fahrenheit, just battling the conditions, it becomes its own battle itself, like, let alone that you're playing another team. But, these guys are professionals, and it really showed. Some of the things, was Palencia not coming out with gloves to start the first half. Also, Igor Jesus for being
I'm going to correct you every time.
For being a kid from Goiás to have him come out, and he was like shorts, no pants, no long sleeves as well. Like you can see the guys that put out the vibe. Reminds me of Bud Grant, legendary Minnesota Vikings coach, that would walk out in like a t-shirt and pants and like 15 below zero for the coin flip. Just those guys that go out just to show that they can. And so it was nice to see. As far as the game, we had Hollingshead with the tackle in the box to give up the PK. We had Tillman with a sloppy penalty as well to give Mihailovic the set piece, which we said in the show. He's the most dangerous set piece taker in the league, not named Lionel Messi. Like Mihailovic, he has a magical right foot, and you don't want to let him shoot anywhere near the box. And we did, and we got punished for it. Luckily, our captain, Aaron Long, came through on a corner and gave us that goal back. If we were walking into tomorrow down 2 goals, this becomes a very, very tough match. Going home down 1 goal, it's manageable. Our boys are going to have to step up, but I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it too. And to comment what I saw from the game, first and foremost, the difference between the first half and the second half. I think that in the first half, the boys had the adrenaline rush, and they were ready. They knew it was going to be cold. And what I saw coming back from the second half, a flat team. You saw the possession slide way past towards Colorado, where at some point it was 80-20 on that second half pressure. And it resulted in the goal after the sloppy play in the box, which, Kevin Cabral, of all the people, had to go and punish us with that move. I immediately thought it was a penalty. The referee still had to think about it. They scored the first goal. The second goal comes after a magical play by Mihailovic, as you said. And thankfully, once again, on the road, on the ropes, right? Leadership comes really, really important, and suddenly we have just 1 goal, a single goal deficit to at least take that game to extra. So it's kind of the best of what you could I would say ask for, given the circumstances and given the statistics and everything that we talked about. And so how do you feel, without we're going to bring Braden here to break down the second game of the series, but how are you feeling so far, after this first game? Are you still have confidence? And again, you don't have to give me your result. Yeah, but are you confident in LFC's ability to come back from this deficit?
I am confident for them to come back. Is that team that's capable of coming back the team that's going to show up tomorrow? That's always a question, because right away early in the season, we get into a big game mentally for the team. And, I've said, if there's here and other places, if there's one weakness, I think looking back 8 years with LAFC, the weakness can be mentality in big games where you see them, they just don't come out and match the intensity when it's a especially big game. If it's the regular league game, we dominate. If we have other teams just playing some soccer and we're playing soccer, like one-on-one and positionally, like we tend to outmatch every team we play. And that's how we tend to beat teams, just by winning one-on-one battles, because we have a better quality player on the field. But, when these moments come up and guys need to step up, sometimes they run into a team where everybody decides they're stepping up, they're kicking it up a higher gear, and they're taking an extra special effort for the game. And our boys don't always recognize that, and they don't always match the effort as well. So if they can do that tomorrow, they should go through. We got to expect Colorado to probably be bunkering. We'll hear what Braden has to say about that. But they're generally a counter-attacking team. Any counter-attacking team, if they're up a goal, they're going to sit back. So if we can get that goal, the earlier the better. It's going to change the game, and I think at that point, it's going to be a dogfight, and we're pretty good at winning dogfights.
Right. And it reminds me again the Libertadores de America, which is, I think this tournament has to keep trying to emulate what that tournament is. And that single digit or single goal deficit is best overcome if you can do it in the first half. And then it's essentially an open game for the second, with both teams being cautious again and looking for that other strike. So if LAFC can come in and put one away within 15 minutes, which is, I always say, it's the best time, right, to gain control of a game. The game in Colorado means absolutely nothing. And suddenly you have a 0-0 game and an opportunity to really play, your style of soccer, because before I'll bring Braden here, I want to talk about the offense because away goals count a lot, and LAFC, and I don't know if CONCACAF does the away goals counting more, but either way, scoring away is always more important, whether that goal counts more or not. And what I found is, unfortunately, our offense was extremely ineffective between Denis and even Giroud. When the best I saw of Giroud was his frozen beard. There was really not much going on from the attacker. So, are you concerned at all with how we looked? We had a goal from a center back to bring us back. The offense did not seem to be clicking at all. Do you put that in the elements, or do you put this in a Colorado team that kind of knows how to play now against LAFC and prevent guys like Bouanga from doing what he does?
Such a cop-out, but I think it's a little bit of each. I think the environment makes it harder for us to execute our game plan as cleanly as they want. It's also preseason, so nothing's going to be as clean as they want as well. But at the end of the day, I think they needed to execute better than they did, and this team is capable of doing it better than they did. Giroud is such a question mark every game, like what to expect from him. He doesn't seem to get himself into positions where the guys can get him the ball. And part of this, I would like to blame it on the other guys, but we see when Obobisi comes in, he has a much better success of getting into spaces to get touches on the ball. Mm-hmm. So, that tells me it's not, that Giroud's probably a big factor in this, or at least he's the factor that needs to break out for this to get fixed. I don't think the rest of the team is going to fix it. It's got to be up to Giroud at this point. But with such a pedigree he has, it's hard to imagine him not fixing it, and at the same point, it not being fixed already is kind of crazy too. So I think with a lot of us is a big question mark, but if Giroud steps up in this game, we're going to win it. Basically any game Giroud steps up and we're going to win. If we have Martinez in, this is going to be a big help. Ordaz has been great coming in the second game. We scored again, but I think if Martinez can start, this will be helpful as well, which he didn't start the first game in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty confident as well. I think there's plenty of time. As I said, even if the early goal doesn't come, you can still extend this game, and you just can't get scored at, right? You have to be cautious and you have to be careful because Mihailovic, these guys they're dangerous and they can put one in, and right. So LAFC has to have a mentality to come in here. We're going to score at least 2 goals no matter what. No matter what, we're going to score 2 goals. And that means you have 1 goal to give, right? Even if you get scored, you don't want that. You have 1 to give to take it to an extra, right? To basically make the series tied up in both places and then, battle it out after that. But you have to have the mentality that you have to score twice, not once, but twice, because a 1-0 lead late is very dangerous. Colorado can capitalize on that and end the dream very, very, very fast. Geronimo said something interesting that, in the post of the Minnesota game saying that the preseason had been too short for a team like his that had been completely changed, right? And has welcomed several new people and now had to play important games early on. He really felt that was an uphill battle and certainly wasn't so happy with the fact that he didn't have, preparation for it. But at the same time, the fact that Giroud's been here for a while and Denis been here for a while. So the guys that are still, lacking production, they're not the new ones. I'm seeing really good things from the new guys. And last thing on Giroud, what's interesting about his stats is that, where he would score from, much closer to where he's getting his chances from here. And as we said it last week, the guy doesn't shoot. And if he doesn't shoot, he can't score. Now, why he cannot shoot? His positioning. Why is he in this positioning? It's a tactical thing. So it is related to LAFC, in my opinion, and he's still trying to find his footing of where he fits best. We saw he missed a very close shot against Minnesota. We'll talk about that game and his role there, very small. But, we expect Giroud to be a very dominant and aggressive player for this Tuesday game. I'm going to bring in Braden here to talk to us about the game. Braden, welcome back. Thank you so much for being back at Section 128, the new LAFC podcast. And, you came in and talked about Colorado and the type of game they were going to basically bring in that cold weather, the elements favoring Colorado. So before we go into the second game, I want to hear from you. What did you see from your team from Colorado? Were you expecting the success that you saw, the frustration of the LAFC attackers? Talk to us a little bit about what you saw from that game.
Yeah, I loved it. Be honest, it was too cold to really pay attention at every single moment. Kidding.
You were there. That's true.
Kind of kidding, kind of not. But yeah, I love the grit. I think that was the biggest takeaway from this game was just the grit that Colorado showed. And again, like you said, the frustration that LAFC felt. When Giroud got subbed off in the 70-somethingth minute, he goes and punches the ceiling of the glass barrier on the bench. So obviously really frustrated there. And like you said, he's kind of struggled to find his form, find his goal-scoring form with LAFC. And I'm sure that was exacerbated by the cold and by the conditions and by the 2-1 loss. That said, Eric, well done with the score prediction. We both had the Rapids winning by 1 goal. But yeah, that away goal for LAFC is going to be huge. That means that in this game, all you have to do is score against the Rapids, which LAFC is very, very good at doing at BMO Stadium. So it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, I did like what I saw.
Yeah, I think
talk a bit about Mihailovic and before I kick to Eric, but what did you see from your star? I rolled my eyes a little bit when Eric made him the best free kicker in the league, and he punished me there by.
Well, Braden, do you disagree? Other than Messi, would you put Mihailovic?
It's tough to disagree with you, but even I would at this point maybe put him right next to Messi. But what did you see from Mihailovic, and how has he changed the culture within Colorado Rapids since his arrival?
Well, yeah, definitely. It's hard to argue that he's not one of the top 5, top 3 free kick takers. I'm sure Hugo Lloris probably thinks that as well. But yeah, Georgi Mihailovic, he's just a dog, right? All he wants to do is win. He doesn't care how it happens. He doesn't care how he does it, how the team does it. He just wants to win. When you're in that situation 25 yards out, you're thinking, I'm going to hit this and it's going to hurt because it's 0 degrees outside. But he wasn't really concerned with that. He wasn't really concerned with the quality of contact on the ball either. All he said post-game was he was trying to hit it as hard as he could. That's what he did. And he puts it coffin corner, upper 90, top left. Just an absolutely insane take from him. Gorgeous. As far as the culture, people really have evolved to match that kind of competitiveness of Georgi Mihailovic. Georgie is not the most social guy. He's really funny, but he's not the most sociable. And I think guys just kind of look to him as an example of competition. You want to win, and you're here to do a job. And I think that was in full effect on Tuesday.
Eric.
I was kind of, I guess, more just going back in this game with the aggregate. It's going to be interesting, and would love to hear how you think Colorado's going to come out to this game. But generally on these second legs, if LAFC scores 1 goal with the away, all of a sudden we're ahead. If Colorado ties it back up, all of a sudden we're behind. And these games by the second half, if we're unable to score, it's going to devolve into some shithousery where every contact the guy's down for as long as they can, and it's when you're on the side that's chasing in this, as a fan, it's like one of the most frustrating sports things. But how do you see Colorado? Do you see them just coming out and bunkering? Is that how you see in their DNA? What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, you've seen it before. You saw it in the Club America game last year. They hunkered down. They really went for a 0-0. They wanted to take that one into penalties, and they did. They did a really, really good job. What the Rapids are really good at outside of the counterattack and the press is suffering. That's how Chris Armas puts it on a regular basis, is that you have to suffer to not give up goals, and they're really good at that. I am interested to see how they're going to come out and play this one, though. After the game on Tuesday, multiple players, and I believe Chris Armas included, said they're going to go out and they want to go for this one as well. They're not really looking for, obviously not a 1-goal loss, because we know what that means, but they don't necessarily want a tie. They want to go for the win. And I think that sets a tone. It sets a statement. Eric, I see your face.
Do you believe that? I mean, you just talked about how great they were at bunkering last season,
Mm-hmm.
and Colorado is kind of a team that's built to do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
would he walk away from what is his most likely effective winning strategy?
I don't think so, but just given the way that everybody said basically the same thing that I talked to after the game, it's going to be interesting. But then you look at the St. Louis game this past Saturday in the season opener. That's exactly what they did. I'm not sure that they were looking for a 0-0 draw, but St. Louis put up 18 shots, 5 on goal, and they didn't score. And that's it, thanks in part to Zach Steffen. It's also thanks in part to Cheeto Awaziam and Ian Murphy are a legit center back pairing, and we're starting to see that in both of these games so far. So I think for me, the most likely path to getting through to the second round of the CCC is to hunker down. They did it in leg 1 on Tuesday. They moved into a 4-5-1. The only reason Aaron Long scores that goal is because of a lapse of focus on a set piece, short corner. Denny Bouanga puts it in a perfect spot. Aaron Long puts it in a good spot. So I think they did it well. They've done it well before, and I think for me that's probably the best path to moving through.
All right.
Eric, all right. Anything else you want to ask Braden? I got a couple more.
Yeah. In injuries, how's Colorado been since that last Tuesday game? I almost felt like I saw an injury. I don't want to misspeak and say the wrong guy, but against St. Louis, did everybody come through healthy from that last game? Can we expect to see the same lineup, or is anybody expected to not play who was there last time?
It's going to be interesting what the lineup is going to be, but from an injury standpoint, it should be pretty similar to what it was against St. Louis. Obviously, Jackson Travis, we spoke. He got hurt right before the St. Louis game. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's something upper body. Andreas Maxu, I don't expect him to play. He's on a week-to-week basis right now with a lower body injury. And with the way, again, Awaziam and Murphy are playing, I don't think you really need to rush him back at the moment. Reggie Cannon and Keegan Rosenberry are playing well enough that Sam Vines being hurt probably isn't much of an issue, as it would be, in the past. But yeah, I think as far as lineups go, it's going to be interesting because Chris Armas last year in a do or die game against Galaxy went into a 3-4-3, which we hadn't seen from them until that point. And they played really well for 85 minutes, defending against possession. And I think that's what they're going to do here. I'm not sure if they're going to go 3-4-3, but Josh Atencio at the 6, he debuted against St. Louis. He looked really good. So there's a lot of options here.
So two factors. Like first, the travel. No, there's some travel involved, and now you come back to LA after what I believe was a road game, right, in St. Louis. Is that correct? Yep. So you got some travel here that will likely impact this team. But I am impressed, and maybe you can just comment quickly on the weekend game that you held a 0-0 at St. Louis against a team that was debuting and had not had a midweek game, and walked out of there with a scoreless match. Which for Colorado against LAFC would mean like you go through. So were you happy with the results? And do you think what we saw this weekend was a little bit of what Colorado is going to bring in this tomorrow night? Really? Yeah.
There's different aspects to it. I think what made the St. Louis game good, but kind of frustrating, was the attack. With Josh Atencio making his debut, he was in the double pivot with Oliver Larraz, and that forced Cole Bassett out onto the left wing. And I thought it was a little bit uncomfortable to be nice. I think Cole Bassett thrives with options to either side and the goal in front of him, and that's just not what you get when he's on the wing. It's perplexing to me that you don't put Cole Bassett in the double pivot and put Oliver Larraz on the bench and have a winger play on the wing. But yeah, I did like what they did to get out of there with a 0-0 draw. And I think, yeah, you'll probably see something similar, at least tactically speaking, in the defense, to try to do the same thing against LAFC.
Yeah, no, that's one of Celso's for years. He always talks MLS is a point. If you can get points on the road, like 1 point in the road, he'd take every point in the road over like ups and downs. You know, you win your games at home and you get a point in the road, and you're going to be near the top of the table at the end of the season.
Yeah, I do believe that a point on the road it's worth a lot, and it's 2 points lost from any other plane. By the way, Colorado Rapids just put a nice little art saying that what Mihailovic has done to LAFC in this rich history: 6 games, 5 goals, and 2 assists. That counts the games in Leagues Cup, of course, the CCL games, and I believe a couple other regular season games that he did really well. So, yeah, he's been what we call in Brazil a carrasco of LAFC. And I personally feel that we'll move on. Let's talk about this upcoming game tomorrow. Personally, the recipe for Colorado to beat LAFC is the same. Is Mihailovic having a good game. And if LAFC cancels Mihailovic, it will likely lead to great possessions for LAFC, which could lead to goals. But if he has space and the team is taxed with defending him, and we see what we saw in Colorado, that means trouble for LAFC. Braden, and before I go to Eric, Braden, what are your expectations for tomorrow for this team? Talk to us about what you expect from Colorado for the second leg of the CCL.
Yeah, again, like I said earlier, I think the most likely outcome, if you're wanting to move on in the tournament, is to hunker down, go for a 0-0 scoreline. And we've seen it before. The Rapids, give up a goal, they have to chase, and they chase the game, and then it really opens up for the other team. Last year against Galaxy in that second game, same thing. They were tied 1-1 for most of the game. They give up another one. They have to win that game, so they start chasing the game, and then they give up 2 in stoppage time. They did the same thing against LAFC. I can't remember if it was the regular season game at BMO or if it was the Leagues Cup game, but you see the Rapids have a habit of chasing games that they're down in if it's a must-win scenario, and they get punished for it. And that's just kind of a byproduct of being a pressing, counter-attacking team like Colorado.
Give me your we got a couple minutes before the NYCFC guys may be joining us, so I will be letting you go here soon, but I'd like to hear your starting 11 for Colorado, and please let us know, what do you think the outcome of the game will be? Okay,
I think I'm not entirely sure about them going into 3-4-3, so I'll just go with the 4-2-3-1. And that'll be center backs, Ian Murphy, Chidozie Awaziam. Then outside backs, you'll have Keegan Rosenberry and Reggie Cannon. I hope to see a double pivot of Josh Atencio and Cole Bassett, Calvin Harris and Kevin Cabral on the wings, Georgi Mihailovic at the 10, and Rafa Navarro at the 9. Now, predictions-wise, I think I have faith in the Rapids' ability to hold off for 90. So I'll say 0-0 on that end. But if they concede, if it's going to rain, it's going to pour. So it's either a 0-0 or a 2 or 3-0 for me.
All right, Eric. I'm going to ask you again. Any other last questions for Braden before he goes? And talk to us a little bit. What are you expecting from the lineup for LAFC tomorrow night? Right. I know you sent it to me, wasn't able to put it together on the screen, but walk us through, who do you think is going to play tomorrow? We'll let Braden go and break down a little bit of what we think this game is gonna end up being, give a chance for the NYCFC guys to join us.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Long, and I think it's going to be a very similar lineup as the first time, except Martinez starting instead of Ordaz. So I think, and also Marlon, I feel is going to start as well. But basically, I'll start with Lloris is going to be in goal. We're going to have Hollingshead at the left back, Aaron Long and Marlon starting in the midfield or on the back line with Palencia on the right. And then it's going to be Tillman, Igor Jesus, and
Delgado
in the midfield. And then up front's going to be Bouanga, Giroud, and David Martinez with Ibobasi getting subbed in later, probably Ordaz getting subbed in later, and maybe even Eddie Segura coming in towards the end as well. We will see.
And your projection for this game?
My projection for this game, I think this game is going to be a 3-0 LAFC win. I think this game is going to favor us. They've been waiting to go home and play the LAFC brand of soccer on the field. And I think when we are clicking and playing our game on a nice surface without adverse conditions, I think we're a very, very hard team to beat, and especially in our house. And I think they're going to be pinning the ears back early and coming for blood. It's going to be the longer Colorado can keep them out of the net, the better this game is going to go for Colorado. And like I said, if they can keep a clean sheet in the halftime and the second half starts turning into the, take a long time to get up, it just builds the frustration in the players. It makes guys go crazy. It makes fans go crazy. And it's, it'll be one of those ugly wins. And as Celso knows with me, there's nothing more beautiful to me than an ugly win.
It's going to be an interesting show.
Yeah.
I have one disagreement. I do believe Eddie Segura starts this game. I don't believe he lost position or anything, so they're going to keep rotating it, let him do the Tuesday game, let Marlon play the weekend game. Everything else you've mentioned, pretty good. David Martinez, maybe he starts. I would like to see him start as well, give the kids some momentum with Nathan Ordaz coming off the bench. But, maybe Nathan has I don't know, got some credit now since he's had a couple of good games, had the assist on the weekend. So it's probably up to coach to really make that decision. But I expect both to get minutes regardless. My score, I don't think it's going to be that big of a score. I expect a tight game. Final score 2-1. I do not want to talk about what's going to happen after the 2-1, but I do expect this to be tight in a single digit win, single goal win for LAFC, which would force extras. So I want to thank you, Braden, for being here and talking to us. We'll break it down. Hold on. But I do want to thank you for being here. We got our next guest coming up, Pat Show, like I said. But yes, thank you so much for being a part of this, talking to us about these two games. And
Braden has been great.
Good luck. You made the best team win. And it seems like Colorado and LAFC are now kind of a small rivalry developing since these last couple of games. Thanks again, Braden. You want to plug your new show? Please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on X and Blue Sky at Braden Nurse, just like you see it on the screen. You can find my written work on the Denver Post, on the Rapid section. And then, just launched a new podcast called Commerce City Radio. Myself and a co-host, Mitch Carroll, formerly of DNVR. We're 2 episodes into this thing. It's 2 weeks old. We're having a lot of fun. We're talking PIDs, and it can't get any better than that.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, Braden, and make sure to follow him and his podcast. We'll be doing that. And again, welcome back anytime. And if you guys never need some guests to talk LAFC or any of the teams around us, just let us know. We appreciate it. Buddy.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna get him out. Thank you very much. And right away, we have a bunch of people arrived here from New York City Football Club. So we have Michael here and Michael and JR. JR doesn't have an image. We're gonna bring him in anyways. JR, go ahead and turn your camera on.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
What's up, guys?
Full screen here. We got 5 people in our second episode of Section 128. We really appreciate you guys being here. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, whoever it is, please. Let you know what you guys are doing. A little bit about your project, Blues City Radio. I wrote it down because I don't remember anything. But talk to us a little bit about, I love it. I see that, about what you guys do. And we're going to be talking about here, of course, of the upcoming game between the 2 best cities in this country.
Well, thanks for having us. I'll get us started off. I'm Mike, host of Blue City Radio. Been doing this show with JR and Mike we started the first season that NYCFC started. So we're one of the longest running shows for NYCFC. We're actually in the middle of recording episode 489 of our podcast. And I feel, you have Commerce City Radio before us. And I feel like, maybe they stole a little bit of that city radio from us as we've been around for 11 seasons.
All right. Might have to see if Braden's still in that waiting room, get him back up here. See if it's spicy rest of the show.
And talk to us a little bit about this game that New York City had, and of course play in Miami, right? And it got kind of feisty. Walk us through, what are your thoughts about this game, and what are you expecting of your team this season?
Mike, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one. I mean, it was an interesting game. I think we probably left some points on the table because I went into it honestly thinking we were going to get blown out by Messi and that team, that juggernaut that they have down there in Miami. But we acquitted ourselves well. Miami played with 10 men for most of the game. We probably should have gotten all 3 points. Messi did what Messi does in stoppage time, though, and snatched an equalizing goal. Overall, though, I think the big news is that we got a new coach. And what I saw in that game was a more aggressive playing style, a sort of a more dynamic playing style. I enjoyed watching us play again, which was really exciting to see. So I'm looking forward to good things. I think it's going to be a really interesting test with you guys this weekend, and we'll see. It's all so new right now. We're still sort of figuring it out ourselves.
Okay, one more question for me before I kick it to you, Eric. You lose Santi Rodriguez to Brazil, and another player that goes to Brazil from New York. I don't know what's going on from MLS. A ton of players, they're really seeing MLS as a market. What does that mean for the club? Is he a replaceable piece? Who's coming to fill that void for NYCFC?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for having me on the show. I'm actually based in San Diego, so not too far down the 5.
Very cool.
Or the 405 with the express lanes. Maybe I can get here in less than 3 hours. But I'm looking forward to this weekend's game against LAFC. I'll be there in attendance, so looking forward to it. But to answer your question, first and foremost, who's going to replace Santi Rodriguez is the question that all New York City FC fans are asking themselves right now. We don't know. We haven't we haven't brought in a transfer since over a year ago. 2 transfer windows have now pretty much come and gone, and they've made no transfer signings other than free agent signings. So fans are kind of looking around. We do have a new coach, so that could be part of the reason why that is. They want to have him to have a little kind of look at the team before they start signing people. But yeah, I mean, Brazil opened up a lot of opportunity for their league to start signing players and getting some of these third-party owners involved. And I think, we're talking about Messi, like him joining the league, that gives a lot more credibility to the league outside of the U.S., and the league's obviously growing. And I think that because Brazil got an influx of cash right now, they're looking at MLS for potential players. So big loss for New York City FC, but we'll see what happens. I'm assuming they will not sign someone before this weekend, though, against LAFC. But I guess that's our problem to have going forward this season.
No, it's interesting. I believe the last time we played was January of 23, which, if I remember correctly, Thales Magno was the first. It was his first game he played. So my wife's Brazilian. I remember she yelled, "Hi, Brazil!" and he looked over, and he was a brand new 18-year-old kid. And on that line, because Celso and we both follow Brasileiro probably more than any other league other than MLS. And to go back 3-4 years ago, where we had Edward Atuesta going down there, not doing well, Jegson Mendes going down there, not doing well. But now, especially with the Botafogo guys and Thales Magno, Corinthians looks like they're going to be one of the strongest teams this year, and he has a pretty prominent role in that side. And so I think along this, not only are MLS players starting to go back there, they're starting to go back there now and become very successful on the top teams, whereas before they would go there and kind of just get lost in the sea of players. So just that kind of wanted to finish that thought, but more so, since we haven't played it's been 25 months since we've last seen NYCFC. Tell us about the lineup, how NYCFC plays, and because a lot of us here don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea. We don't really watch that many games.
Just give us the very basic rundown of how NYCFC plays and their main guys on the field to contribute.
Well, I'll say this: we're going to play a 4-3-3. That's their pretty standard lineup. It's the focus this preseason and what we saw in this first game is they're really ramping up their intensity. So you see players like Kevin O'Toole, Burke Risa really got at it, really put it all on all on the line. I hate to say it, it almost reminded me a little bit like Red Bull and Philly, as far as the amount of energy and intensity into the tackles. That's a good thing. It's a bad thing if you're playing against a team and you can use that intensity to throw them off their game and basically take away those crucial seconds to where they can make that decision, and it forces them into a mistake. You saw a lot of mistakes with teams trying to play out the back this week. That's where NYCFC is going to try to focus. But ultimately, it's a 4-3-3. It's about controlling the ball. 2 years ago, they led the league with in passes in their own half. And that's really not effective for attacking, but at least it keeps if the other team doesn't have the ball, it's hard for them to score.
It's Cushing ball, right? And you get rid of Cushing in the year that he finishes sixth and makes a playoff run, loses to the crosstown rival. I understand that, but again, I really didn't understand the timing of letting Cushing go. But I could see the advantages of letting Cushing go, giving some of the frustration of the past. But what is the new coaching staff bringing that Cushing doesn't bring? And are you guys happy? Talk about the 4-3-3, but are you guys happy with the direction of the team post Cushing already?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I feel like
he's laughing. He's like, "Oh,
Cushing yelled at me in a press conference, so I feel like I'm qualified to take this question." Cushing was a fine coach. He was a frustrating coach in a lot of ways because you didn't get a lot of transparency with answers in press conferences from him. We were just talking about it on our podcast about how he would say the same answer again and again and again, no matter what you got. And I think that was sort of replicated in the style of play we had with him. It was very comfortable, a lot of back passes, a lot of safe, controlled passes. And what I loved to see and what I fell in love with watching NYCFC play was that dynamicism, right? Like the aggressive passing forward, the buildup of play, but in an aggressive, manner that moves the ball down the pitch. And I think that's what we're getting with Janssen, at least in the small limited size that I'm seeing so far, is that the focus really has been on getting the ball forward into the final third and creating something there with that. We still got a little work to do there with that going, but we've got really dynamic players. Alonso Martinez came on for us last year, scored 17 goals.
Yeah, he's been excellent.
Yeah, been really, really good. He scored again against Miami. He's a guy who makes some superb runs out of the back. And if there's anything that you guys should be worried about is Alonso making his runs and springing the ball over top. They've started to do that. That's the big difference I've noticed since Janssen took over, is that they're really trying to spring him. He's very fast, very good with his feet, very good at receiving the ball and turning and taking that shot. So he's a very dangerous part of the team. Losing Santi made a big difference, but we've got some players that can step into that slot. Agustino Heda, Julian Fernandez can come in there and do a job. Very talented players, two Argentine players. We've got as good a starting 11 as anybody in the league. I think it's when it gets to the bench, when we see people coming off the bench, that it gets a little thinner, and that's when we got to add some pieces. But everything I've seen from Janssen, the new coach, has been really good and really positive. Just style of play is already better. We're already moving faster. It's already more fun to watch. So I think it's going to be a really entertaining game. I think, no matter the result, it'll be a really good game between two really good, fun teams to watch.
So, but why not make a run at Ronnie Dylan since he ends up in Atlanta? That's your guy. That's your guy that made you win a title. And I always thought he was almost too good for MLS, not necessarily, but at the time. And he ends up in Atlanta. So just talk to us a little bit about the process of finding the new coach there. I thought Dylan just was going to fit there, and then he gets announced in Atlanta instead. Was it just a timing thing?
Well, I guess what's hard to answer that question is because I think New York City FC is kind of notorious here for keeping things very close to the vest. Things are not transparent to the fans or to the media, really. A perfect example is just something we were talking about earlier, recording our podcast, which is Santi Rodriguez news. He got released an hour before the game started, and 5 days prior to that, he was giving interviews to Brazilian press in a Brazilian airport about him going over to the Brazilian league. So, no one knows what the process is. I will say with Ronny Deila, this is going to be his fourth team since leaving New York City FC in 2022, in the middle of 2022. So he didn't have the best track record of sticking around, and I think that they saw Pascal Johnson as someone that could potentially stick around through 2027 when the new stadium opens. And honestly, as we've talked about it on our podcast, that seems to be where the teams and the franchise's focus is right now, is everything is kind of leading up to 2027. They haven't signed a player under the age of 26, with the exception of Maxi Morales coming back for, I think it's like 3 years. So this is just kind of the way that they are right now. And I think that's why he got hired, or one of the reasons he got hired, as well as being maybe a little bit more of a stricter kind of coach coming from the Netherlands.
Makes sense. Eric, I know you have a good question about the City Group. Go ahead with that one.
Yeah, no, this kind of leads into it because, one of the reasons we kind of started getting into this is we've been fans of this for a while, and we were just kind of looking at MLS media, and a lot of the MLS media there all the time, we were just like, because I'm a huge NFL fan as well, and same with MLB, like they ask hard questions, and there was just so many softballs, and I'm just like, what? Like this media feels like they're part of the PR machine, So part of us kind of starting was just to try to get more critical thoughts out there to other people, because we all have that, and kind of with this, it's almost, but with the City Group as well, how do you feel like with the City Group with NYCFC? Do you feel like it's something that kind of gets neglected at times, because it's kind of a part of a bigger machine, and a bigger machine that's bread and butter is really in England right now. How does that kind of present itself to you guys as NYCFC fans?
Well, I'll start, and I'm sure this is probably the one question where we'll all give our varying opinions on.
Right.
One of the big things about NYCFC in 2024 that rubbed everyone in the media the wrong way was they changed the policy to locker room access. Major League Soccer, it's literally on a board outside the locker room that the locker room has to be opened 15 minutes after the final whistle. And NYCFC moved to a mixed zone where they have us in a hallway outside the locker room. It's noisy. You can't get the players' attention. We constantly have players walking by us because you're talking to one player as three players walk by. NYCFC has tried to manage that, but ultimately it's still a violation of league policy. And part of that is because they do feel, because of the experience that they have in running media from a team in Premier League and other leagues across the globe, that they can manipulate the rules and they can get away with it. And it's a matter of, well, let's see, let's force the team, let's force the league, let's force Don Garber to make us change. And unfortunately, Don Garber has kind of got his hands tied behind his back because he already lets Miami do whatever they want, or at least that's my opinion. Mike or JR, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'll add something to it. I mean, it is a little frustrating at times because it does feel at times like a big machine. They're very close to the vest about transactions, but there are things that they give us that are good as well. And I just want to point those out too. We have there's a huge vast net of like scouting. So we can have access to that. There's a whole group of pipeline there that we can tap into. And the biggest thing for me is that our stadium doesn't get built in Queens without City Group as part of it. So, I mean, you don't build something that big, and that's going to change the whole face of one of the biggest cities in the world. And that doesn't get built without a lot of money and a lot of backing. So those are two good things that they add to us. However frustrating they are at times, I always remind myself that, there are some good things as well.
Jerry, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd say just as an example of that, I'll bring it back to LAFC. I was in attendance for one of the better regular season wins in New York City FC's history. It was in 2021, where they actually ended up winning the cup that year, and that's when Talis Magno had just gotten signed. They at one point it was an away game at LAFC. I want to say the game ended. It ended 2-1. They were they were
they won at
down.
the end. It was I don't want to say Tajuri Shirati scored,
Yep.
and
I think it was Shadi scored,
or Ibeaga scored. Guys that end up in this side afterwards. I do remember that game was one of the first games I've ever attended. I think this is the game that Eric was mentioning too. He was just off by a couple of years. No big deal.
No, I said.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jared. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was saying one of the things that I remember about that was that game. I don't remember exactly what minute it was, but they brought on New York City FC brought on, I think it was 4 or 5 players at once. And it was Talis Magno came on, Izzy Shradi came on, Anton Tinerum came on. A lot of players that you're like, wow, this is them really kind of inadvertently showing off the strength of that global scouting network. And that's, I'd say, probably from a soccer standpoint, sporting standpoint, that is the biggest benefit that we get as New York City FC fans, is just that global scouting network that extends so far. We've seen players come from the Croatian league and be successful. We've seen players from the Croatian league and they're still on the team and not have been successful. But we get players from leagues that you may not necessarily have some other teams like Colorado Rapids or what have you may not have that far-reaching scouting network. But like Mike said, like there are pros and cons to everything. We gave up a player that was 18 years old in Christian McFarlane, and no one knows if that was a free transfer or did we get anything back from it because he went right to Man City. So like I said, there's pros and cons to everything. And I think ultimately it's a good thing for the club, but the relationship is still kind of playing itself out.
Yeah, as it is with ownership always. And I what I've seen so far is that the ability to replace players when they leave has been singular. Players come and players go, but they come as well. And the team is always competitive. I really look forward to this weekend's game. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you guys expect from it. LAFC maybe have a rotated squad for this because of the CONCACAF Champions games happening tomorrow. Or maybe not. If they end up losing, who they'll know what's going to happen. But what are your expectations for the game? And of course, travel being a factor, you have to travel all the way to Los Angeles. And I'll be honest, my personal experience, the Boston teams, the Red Bulls came here, the New England came here, and they seem tired and end up losing badly. Do you think travel is going to be a factor for this weekend game? And anyone can take this question.
I'll say, I think travel is definitely going to be an issue. The bigger issue is going to be NYCFC's road record over the last 2 years, and a lot of these players are the same players from last year. So the question is going to be, how do these guys respond? How does Pascal Janssen get these guys to respond? Look, getting the point in Miami is great, but they also let 2 points go, get away from at the very end of the game. Are they going to be able to play for a full 90 minutes, or I guess what would it be, 123 or 130 minutes? But that's the biggest question: is the mindset going to change, because their road performance over the last 2 seasons has been woeful.
If nobody wants to add to that, I'd like to just go around and do a prediction. Eric and I, we still have to talk about the Minnesota game. It's been a great convo with these guys from NYCFC. I learned a lot about the boys in blue. By the way, to me, one of the most fun and exciting jerseys in Major League Soccer, the New York City FC jerseys, especially the away ones, always seem to catch my eyes. But hey, look, I really appreciate you guys being here. But if you guys don't have anything to add about the game or the roster, feel free to do so as you go around. Let me know, what do you think the score is going to be for this? Maybe I'll start. Anyone can start. Go ahead.
Well, let me start because I haven't heard the sound of my own voice for a little bit.
Oh, my bad, Eric. Yeah, go ahead.
No. So one of the things I think that from sounding like how this plays, especially if they are content to pass the ball in the back, because we like to counter press, and if you guys also like to bypass the midfield to the front, one of our weaknesses is our fullbacks and our fullback recoveries. So I think there will be the opportunity for long balls over the back. Depending on who we go with our center back pairing, Marlin has had injury issues, but is pretty fast. Segura is not quite as fast, and Long's not quite as fast. So if NYCFC plays kind of that, and they can keep out of our pressing and play the ball this game, it sounds like the way you play could be kind of an Achilles heel for us going into that. So just kind of had the thoughts as you guys discuss your strategy and thinking about how we do it. Like, that's kind of a way I could see the game playing out. But I'll throw my score prediction in here. I think this is going to be a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'll go with that too. I'll just back up, and then I was going to say I think there's going to be a few more mistakes than that, but I think a draw is a really good result for us, and I can't pick a loss, but I'll say a 2-2 draw just because I think there's going to be you guys score some goals. Our back line is still coming into form right now. Where our one designated player we have left has been hurt, and so he'll be back for the game, but I don't know if he's going to start with Thiago Martins, but the Brazilian that we have on the team. But I think there'll be some holes back there that you guys are going to exploit, but I think we'll also probably put a couple in the back of the net as well. I'm hoping for a 2-2 draw. That's what, if that happens, I'm really happy.
Anybody else? JR, Mike?
I'm not as positive on New York City FC's chances. I will say, like, the one X factor here is that you guys are having a midweek, very important game for CONCACAF Champions Cup, and we don't have that. However, we're going 2 back-to-back away games against Miami, then flying all the way to LA. Traditionally, New York City has not done well in West Coast games, as I've covered them for the last 7 years out here, and most of them they do not win. I will say I think it's going to be a 2-1 victory for LAFC, and I think the main reason is right now New York City FC has some defensive woes. They lost James Sands over the offseason, and Thiago Martins, that Mike mentioned, is the best defender on the team. He's most likely not going to be playing this game. He was captain last year of the team. Tavon Gray, who's also arguably one of our best defenders, he wasn't playing last game. I don't know if he will be ready to go for this game. I think that there's, with Denny Bouanga playing, he's always really fun to watch. He's probably my favorite player in MLS. I think that at home LAFC is going to be able to score more than one goal against this New York City FC club. And I guess, like you said, Eric, it's probably just going to be the X factor is going to be how LAFC's defense holds up.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. I also think Giroud is going to be an X factor if that guy can produce, because if he doesn't and NYC can double team Bouanga all game, they can take him out of it. That's, our attack definitely has been sputtering a bit.
Yeah, let's see if he plays, because again, it's tough to even do a lineup for the weekend because we don't know what's going to happen midweek. If LFC keeps playing CCL, there's a chance that we see a rotated squad again for this game against NYCFC. Again, guys, I really appreciate you being here. I wish we could keep going here, but we do have more things that we want to cover. I want to thank Mike and JR for stopping by. These guys brought a lot of information about NYCFC, brand new stadium coming up in 2 years. We did not have a chance to talk about the funky Yankee Stadium that you guys play at half of the time.
That's good. We're tired of hearing about that anyway. So,
but it's a charming memory of our roots as a soccer nation. So I appreciate what I see. But at the same time, I think the next big leap for Big Blue is going to be when your stadiums open up in 2027. So again, appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, take care, guys. All right, I'm going to start taking y'all one by one. Really appreciate it, you guys being here. Eric, just back to you and I.
Blue City Radio, guys. Blue City Radio.
Everybody to talk. But, dude, I want to hear your thoughts about all the games, right? Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to Colorado first. Let's talk about tomorrow's game. We're going to go over here. We're at the hour. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate every single person that stopped by, and also everyone that is watching. I really appreciate it. We really do. But let's talk about Colorado a little bit. Brandon gives a lot of information. And it is, of course, the biggest game of the week for us. We expect LAFC to bring it. LAFC, Daniel was predicting a Giroud goal within the first 20 minutes. But walk me through, what are your true expectations for this game tomorrow? You mentioned you are confident, big win coming, but let's break that down for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think with this game, I think the things that the team's been trying to do is going to click. I also think that the experience in Colorado is going to be helpful to the guys one-on-one. You know, I think as it seemed like with Braden, it seems like we're going to have it's going to be pretty much the same group of guys playing each other that played each other a week ago in Colorado. And I think a little bit of that experience, they hopefully should be better prepared to deal with it. And the weather is only gonna favor us. I think, you know, if there's one thing, LAFC is a game that thrives when there's great conditions to play, when the field's great, that grass is nice and tight, the ball moves fast. You know, we're built for a fast game. So for me with Colorado, I was very happy with the fight that they had to claw that goal back. I mean, when a loss feels like a win, that last goal kind of had that feeling. And so they just need to expand on that. And we just need to play our game. I think if we can press Colorado better, we cause some mistakes and we can get a nice early goal. If we get an early goal, this game, you know, it's going to be ours.
Yeah, and that's the key to me always. Now, get the early goal, level the play, and then play your game without the pressure. Don't extend the game, right? Don't go into the second half without a lead. It might happen, right? But that's when the pressure really builds up, which could lead to mistakes, right? Because, you know, you only have you're behind, and there goes your CCL chance if you lose it. So you really have to become very aggressive. So I agree with you. You talked about the lineup and how you expect Marlon to start. He had an excellent game. Great segue for us to talk about Minnesota, perhaps. But you know, you're pretty confident in Marlon coming for Segura. I like that change, but do you think we've seen enough to justify already benching Segura for Marlon?
Here, you know, what I had trouble with, and I think what we were saying this game against Colorado, is that Rafael Navarro came so close to beating Segura twice. Yeah. And I think I told you, I said, if it's Rafael Navarro and Segura, Navarro is going to beat him the third time, you know, and luckily that third time never came up, but there was a couple recoveries that Segura just barely made it. And he looked like that tank was starting to empty out. And I know from what we've heard, Marlon not starting at the beginning of the season was he just wasn't ready to get going. And it seems like he is. And I got to believe that Marlon is in our best 11 right now, that Marlon and Long are the two. If we could have anybody on that back line, it's going to be those two together. And I think you have to put your best guys out for this game. He was just an absolute beast against Minnesota. And, you know, I want to see more of that. Segura's been playing good. He's been improving, you know. When he came in last season, he was a liability at times. And I think this season he's playing as a very serviceable reserve center back. You know, I mean, if I think he and Chanot, it's questionable which one you want coming out as a third. But to me, absolutely none of them have the class that Marlon or Long have. So,
yeah, I like it, man. You know, I was happy for him. You know, he's coming from a bad stint in a couple of teams, and injuries were a part of that, and physical reports, you know, and it seems like the beginning of the season, it took him a while. Preseason took him a while to get back into it. But his verticality, his physicality is everything you want from a center back. If he can stay healthy, a huge addition to our back line. You know, definitely looks like a complete center back, and played really well in that, you know, in that right side there. For what I saw, gave Palencia a lot of a piece to move and do what he needed to do. So I like the change. I can't predict it, but I think we're going to see both of them between the two games. And, you know, if your mindset is correct, and I see what you're saying, you know, we would see Marlon for sure against Colorado, and then Segura coming for, you know, the weekend game, you know, and he could start that, you know, maybe that's the way to go. And then
They're easing Marlon in, like, they may even sub, just like they did last game. They may sub Marlon out in the 75th minute and put Segura in to finish it up, depending on the situation, But I think with Marlon, they're easing him back in, and I'm sure they want to give him as many minutes as they can. But he's on, they're watching his load management, and so this comes down to the data people with the analytic people,
the recovery times and everything else.
Yeah.
And a center back is not as taxed. And I feel like Minnesota, while they were active, they weren't that active, right? Like LAFC sort of dominated the possession there. So in a sense, he didn't have to be taxed as much. So for a center back, maybe a good game. And let's be honest, Segura maybe was still recovering from the game a week ago, right? Some of these guys really do need 7 days. So it's just hard to know how health is already impacting the locker room, right? But I agree with you. You got to be able to shield your best 11, no matter who they are, if you want to have a chance to advance in what I believe to be the most important tournament of the season, and he seems to be sort of like, we got Colorado coming. And, guess what? If we beat him, we got to play the Crew. And if we beat them, we're probably going to have to play the Inter Miami. So there's a lot in this tournament to come. And I think it'd be really a shame if LAFC just fails to advance right in this first round, right? It's not what you want to see. Before we go on to Minnesota, dude, like you mentioned, Ordaz, Martinez. Again, we don't have to beat this one to the ground. I like Martinez to start because he's a little bit more active, more of a playmaker. I know some people in that crazy chat of ours are ready to give up on him. We're not going to name names. But, it would all have changed if he had scored that beautiful left foot that ended up going wide. But, what you saw there is what I like about him. He can create his own shot. What do you think?
No, same. And I think this is where you got to remember he's 19 years old. And I think that as the season progresses, those shots are going to start going on target. I mean, he didn't miss that shot by much.
Not much, man.
No. And we've seen this from players, and we've seen players that start kind of shooting not on target, and it slowly gets on target. Like Bogusz was one. And the last 6 months of Bogusz, like every shot that guy took was on target. But it wasn't like that when he first started out, And so there are players that pick it up. And then there's some players that the shot's off target, and it continues to be off target. Brian Rodriguez was one, like he would dribble past 5 guys and then just put the ball 30 feet over the crossbar, And so Martinez really, people talk about like playing with a 10, but Martinez kind of has that same wing like 10 role where he moves around a lot. He's a little more of a free position player, and he's got a good pass. He's got a good shot, and it's really just him getting that game day experience with the other guys, and he's only going to improve over time. So the thing I really like about him is multiple times against Minnesota, he dribbled past 3 guys, and he kind of just glides with the ball past defenders, and he does it consistently enough that, it's kind of amazing to see. It's not like every once in a while he gets through. It's like he consistently goes past 2 and then a third, and then he'll put a pass off or put a shot outside the frame. But, that's I'm super high on this kid. No way ready to give up on him, but grain of salt, I haven't given up on Giroud yet either. And there's lots of people who gave up on him months ago, So I think it's going to click, and I'm just waiting for it to click. And man, I'm believing.
Yeah. And look, Giroud is an interesting case study because if you go back in this league and now you have somewhat of an okay sample size with Olivier, if you look at the guys that have played, the number of minutes that he's played already, you can already tell what they're going to be. So I am waiting for new data to tell me a different story because unfortunately, what we've seen, there's something not clicking there. The arrival of Under could change everything because it could change the reference of attack. And with a guy like Martinez behind them that can create their own shots off the dribble, that could open spaces for Olivier Giroud in the box. But I continue to see okay service from anyone not named Denis Bouanga. Denis Bouanga is our best crosser at this point. So I know that the goal at Colorado came off a very good Palencia cross. But at the same time, we need more of those plays if Olivier is going to be successful like he's been in other clubs. He needs that ball clean in the box, in speed, in stride, and that may come from guys like Martinez, right? Guys that can create their own shots to open up for him. So I haven't given up on him yet, Eric, but I think he's still missing a couple pieces in order to flourish, because the current format, I don't believe it's going to work out, and that's why I think Under is arriving.
Yeah, well, I think so. Under, he looks to me a lot like a left-footed Bouanga. He's going to play inverted, and he takes a lot of shots, and he has great long shots as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at his stats in the Turkish league, his passing stats aren't that great. He's a finisher. Bouanga's a finisher, which means that Giroud, I think, to be successful, is being relegated to being a setup guy or an outlet for Lloris to bypass the midfield and spring the attack. I just think that Giroud is going to be doing a lot of setup work, and this is probably where he's going to be successful. If Under comes in and plays like I expect, kind of, which is basically he's going to be a left-footed Bouanga, similar profile. And if he can cross as good as Bouanga, this will be helpful. But
it will be, because it also takes some of the pressure off our fullbacks, which is not their natural inclination to be crossers. So we got to find
not a great
where that pass is going to come from. Eric, I want to switch your attention for the next 5-10 minutes. How much time we have left here. We're already been an hour and 10 minutes. Thank you, everybody, for that tuned in. But I just want to talk about the Minnesota game real quick. All right. Because, you come in tired from the weekday game. You have this second leg that you have a deficit. So every reason to be distracted. But MLS is back week 1. Every team is on the is on the schedule playing, right? And we open the season at BMO Stadium. So let's talk about this game. I know we usually start with what the game was like, but let's talk about what the game was like, what your experience at the stadium was like, being back at a game day, bobblehead day. Talk to us about the Minnesota game so we can talk a little bit about, what we saw and the successes that maybe repeat themselves tomorrow.
Yeah. The first thing I got to mention is the bobblehead giveaway was very orderly and very nice. I waited in line 10 minutes before expecting a complete crush, but it was good. And even people who basically got into the stadium 10 minutes before kickoff still got bobbleheads. So it was, there was no chaos with that. So big shout out for that event going well. As far as the Minnesota game, the atmosphere is great. The TIFO recognizing our first responders and our firefighters, specifically with the fires, fantastic class act by the 3252. And the game itself was interesting because, as we talked about before with our Minnesota guests, that they wanted to play a counterattack. We wanted to play a counterattack. So both teams wanted to counterattack. And that's kind of a hard way for it to go. But in the end, LAFC, this version of it, which I like better than last season's, it looks like they're more ready to grind out wins. And Minnesota didn't get a shot on goal till almost the 90th minute. The only shot that otherwise went on goal was a deflection that went off of an LAFC guy and almost into the net, except for the very quick reflexes of Lloris that easily could have been a goal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we pulled it out. So there were some mistakes. Tillman had some poor passes given away, which has been a little bit of a concerning theme so far this season. None of it's really punished us yet, but
I held to that comment until you said it.
But against a really good team in the right position, we're going to get burned on one of these. So it just has to get cleaned up. But what Tillman gives us in the press is excellent and very well results in goals happening as well. So it's kind of can be a double-edged sword that in the midfield, he might lose possession and give up counterattacks, but he's also going to create counterattacks when we don't have the ball. So we just got to deal with that how it is. But ultimately, our defense and midfield are built to kind of grind games away. We saw a clean sheet. So I think we're going to see a lot of clean sheets this season. And if we're not scoring a lot of goals, if you keep a clean sheet, you only need one goal, and that's a win. So I do think that's how a lot of games we're just going to have a very strong, stiff defense again. We have to play mistake-free, and we especially have to play mistake-free tomorrow.
Yeah, totally. And I hope it carries it. You end up with a goal from Jerry Obese, the newbie that someone, I think it was JR, told me that no one has scored more against LAFC than Zlatan, and that was Jeremy Obese, and he comes in now. It comes in. What's that?
It's Abobasi.
Ebobis, my bad. I'm very French, so I don't know how to say his name. Ebobis, my bad. So Ebobis comes in, scores the goal in the 70th minute. Gives LAFC the win we saw in the beginning of the show. I'll play it again at the end. But again, talk to us about, it was right in front of section 128. By the way, the only section around the stadium that has its own podcast, which, I mean, just kidding, but it is true, right? But talk to us about the goal, which you got to see, and those guys got to celebrate right in front of you guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, the goal, what I loved was, number one, it came from a Marlon slide tackle, which was a straight Brasileiro slide tackle. The ball was kind of, I wanted to say it was Keegan Rosenberry. It was kind of getting towards the end of, and he was going down to slide to like knock the ball away. Marlon sees him, goes down, and then immediately slides into the guy and knocks the ball away. Shields it, gets it up, drops it back to Lloris, who then triggered the counterattack. And it was a second ball to Ordaz, which came back to Tillman, who then put it out to Delgado, who pushed and then Delgado
with an external part of his foot, which is a gorgeous pass if you watch it.
Gorgeous pass. And he pushed that up to Bouanga, and then Bouanga with a U-turn to Ordaz.
Ordaz, which passes down to Bobis, which is right there for the shot. And quickly on that, and I think the interesting part is that if that's Giroud's shot, that's not necessarily a goal. And why? If you look at Giroud's stats and FBref, the average distance for him to score is much closer to that kind of shot that you saw from Jeremy. So I'm just gonna say Jeremy. I'm much easier. So to me, it's a positional issue with Giroud, right? Like, and you saw him come in, miss a chance, but Bobisi was at the perfect spot, knocks that left, past the goalkeeper, 1-0. I see the little Mexican kid without shirt running down the steps like a maniac.
Tamayo.
And then he takes the 3 points. Carson does not, just put it out there, loses to San Diego in the opener, and suddenly LAFC got 3 points, buddy.
Yeah, and one of the things kind of how we were saying before back in the NYC game, if you look at Minnesota's attackers, Oluwaisi and Kelvin Yaboa, those guys are both just physical specimens. I mean, they're big, fast, strong guys. And it was Oluwaisi, he had that one shot go off the post and basically run straight across the goal line. He was millimeters away from that ricocheting in for a goal. And that kind of is looking forward, I think that is going to be the Achilles heel, are very fast and very strong counterattackers coming at us. And this is something our back line, because we end up pushing so far forward, trying to make things happen at the end, that we're going to be vulnerable. And it was a bit of luck that kept that ball out of there. So, could have easily been a draw, or even worse, if they take an early lead and start trying to salt the game away. But, you got to take the luck when you get it. And we had that in our favor, but watching out for strong, big, fast counterattacking opponents, this is going to be something I think that moving forward with this team is going to be a Achilles heel that we need to manage.
Yeah, and Minnesota brought the 5 back, and which forced Denis very wide. And I asked him the question, hey, what's his plan? I saw you're almost against the sideline, but he doesn't get fazed by that, and he found a way to contribute, and he realized that there was no way he was going to get shots because he was just going to try to zigzag guys. And you notice if you rewatch that game, how many times he tried to cross. He made his job to cross every ball. Even though Giroud wasn't there, he was crossing within the box every single time. And during the goal, right, he's a little bit more, I would say, he does the spin, and then he dumps it to Ordaz, expecting the ball back, does a dummy run, moves the defender back, and that frees up the pass to Jeremy to score. So I thought it was a very good play, and it showed you how smart Denis Bouanga is, and he will not be taken out of a game. If he feels that they're playing to take him out of the game, he will still find ways to contribute, and it's like I told you before the season start, Eric. It's all about 99. If 99 has a good game, we have a good game, and I think that's going to be the case tomorrow and this weekend. If he can get on the stat sheet, he got on the stat sheet with a hockey stat, with a hockey assist. It's the recipe for a win. He has to be involved, and LAFC has to counter anything that teams bring to cancel him, because when it does, it cancels the entire attacking line. It makes it really hard for LAFC to operate. But I love that your prediction, man. You've been hot with them, and you're projecting a big win for LAFC tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's time to go. We reached 1 hour and 20 minutes here in our show. But, parting words from you, Eric. I appreciate you doing this with me, but what are you going to leave us with here, buddy?
Man, we just, as fans, we got to go into that stadium and we got to be loud every time, whether you're sitting in the North End, whether you're sitting in section 128, whether you're sitting in section 107 or 225. Like, we got to be loud. It's our house. We have one of the best home fields advantage, and that's from us, the fans. So we just got to keep bringing it.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And I wish they could do things to get that stadium packed. I know it's tough to pack a stadium on a Tuesday. It's Colorado, it's not Club America. It's some sexy Liga MX team we're going to play. But I can't stress how important this game is for this club. If we could get to a CCL finals, so many games coming up that are going to be exciting. But the road is hard. But if we were to get to the finals and win, we get to play in the big boys and with the big boys in the FIFA Club Championships, which are starting again. So it's a big prize. Again, Gerando said he was concerned, right, that this game was happening so early in the season. But again, enough with the excuses. Let's get this 3 points. Let's get this victory for more than a goal, like you think it's going to be, and truly continue this run, and make this a magical season. We still have guys coming. We might have Griezmann coming in the middle of the year. LAFC is really set for a really good year. I'm very excited about the season, Eric. But it starts with a big game tomorrow. You don't want to start with a big leg down, and pack your bags already in the first championship. And we're not even in March. We got to be able to keep going. And I expect big things. What's that? Very true. I want to give a shout out, and I will say em português, abração para você, Igor Jesus. Fez grande jogo, uma grande estreia ontem com o LAFC. Fica abraço para você aqui. Muito feliz em ter não só mas 2 brasileiros na nossa equipe. E para frente vamos. Igor Jesus cancelou a defesa do Minnesota. Just a quick shout out for Igor for his debut. And, he doesn't speak a lot of English, but I want to make sure to send him that and give him a shout out for his first MLS game with LAFC. He canceled the Minnesota midfield. Eric, thank you once again. With that, we're going to say our goodbye. We'll put Jeremy's goal here.